Nice! And now? What are we supposed to be doing now? No legendaries, no epics, no rares. Very bad loot. You're considering playing it for the first time, should you try to create your own bit of the first playthrough, you will copy one of the web. I would recommend to try to make your own, it is not hard. The only thing you need to do is to understand the basics of the game. Now, I have made some game guide videos for Titan Quest, actually plenty of videos to explain the basics and more advanced things. I have a playlist which is called Titan Quest Game Guides. You can watch those videos, but since you are here I will give you some very basic tips. And if you don't watch the videos. So, first of all, to play successfully you have to decide for yourself before you start. You decide what play style do you like. For example, my personal favorite is melee weapon and shield. So, most of the times when I play a new action RPG game, new to me, action RPG, I'm going with such a character, shield and a melee weapon. After I have decided which playstyle is my favorite, I start playing the game, and when I'm about to select the mastery, I take a look at all masteries. I see what type of skills they provide, for example, somewhere around here in the beginning. I see if they provide any skills that are buffs that, for example, this one you activate it and it stays active and it gives you some buffs. There are other skills like this one which you assign to your left mouse button, and with this skill you actually attack with your weapons. So, you try to find on skill trees this type of skills in the beginning to see if some masteries provide those skills. You read the descriptions. Most of the time the descriptions are accurate, but in some cases the descriptions could use some, improvements of skills in this game. Then, for example, if you want to play a melee build which will be using a shield, the first... there are a couple of different masteries, 3 or 4 that you can use, but a classic one would be to play with Warfare Mastery, which is the most classic, most basic one for melee builds, and as a secondary mastery for getting more benefits to your shields, you could use Defense Mastery. So when you are to select, when you first in the mastery selection screen, when you see the masteries, you click on the mastery, you check out the skills, you don't spend any points on skills or the mastery itself, you spend nothing. You just hover your mouse over it, you take a look at the skills. Then you can click undo if when you are in the selection screen of masteries, if you click on a mastery to check it out and you click a point here and then you close the window, next time you cannot undo the mastery. That's it. It stays forever there. So every time you are in the selection screen of masteries and you go just to take a review of all masteries or skills, never spend points. Just look at all masteries and then if you decide on one, then spend points on that one. Yeah, you have to. This is why we have undo up here. Now, if you like a boss, for example, the first mastery you could go with would be Hunting Mastery. Now, when it comes to attributes, this is where most players, most beginners make the biggest mistakes with attributes. You can have many different setups here, but the many different setups work mostly for more advanced players who know more what to do with this system. For new players, you have to remember that first of all, when you attack with melee attacks, you have offensive ability. Offensive ability is absolutely mandatory for melee characters. If you don't have enough offensive ability, then maybe half or many anyways of your melee attacks will not hit the target. They will miss the target. There is also a formula which calculates a little bit, which means that if you don't have a specific difference between the defensive ability of enemies and your offensive ability, then even when you hit your enemy, you deal a little bit less damage, you know, than what you would be dealing if you had even more offensive ability anyways. But that is too complicated. Just remember that for melee builds you need offensive ability. So dexterity increases offensive ability. If you got to play with specific types of damage, you have to hover your mouse over attributes. You look here what the description says again. If you got to make a build which will be dealing physical damage, you go with strength. Intelligence increases vitality and elemental damages. And the dexterity increases poison, bleeding and piercing damage. Attributes do not affect pets. Hello Bogas. They do not affect pets, forget about that. So, some very generic rules. If you got more details, as I said before, I have the playlist of the Titan Quest Anniversary game guides. You can take a look there for many more videos and details, but some generic rules is that if you play a melee build and you level up, depending again on the mastery selection, because you can have many different builds, melee builds based on many different combinations of masteries. But for classic ones, it would be you go 1 point to strength, 1 to dexterity as you level up. To increase with dexterity, you increase many things as you can see. But the most important is offensive ability for melee builds, and the defensive ability is useful for every single character, every single build in the game. And strength increases the physical damage, but it also gives you... There are strength-based armor items that have higher base armor. By higher base armor, I mean the white number we see here on this item. It says 690 armor. That is the base armor. So strength also allows you to equip higher tier base armor items, which is very useful. In general, if you are playing with mages, you go with intelligence points and dexterity, mostly intelligence. But with mages, later you will be using mage gear, armor items, which is based on intelligence. So you will be increasing mostly your intelligence. You will start leveling up a character, and in the beginning you can spend points. For example, let's say that you play a mage build, you spend 1 point on intelligence, 1 dexterity, 1 intelligence, 1 dexterity. Every level up, 1 intelligence, 1 dexterity. A little bit later, it is a good idea to spend points also on health for mages, not many points, some points. And then for what else do we have? For pet builds, you can have many different things, but yeah, pet builds is a mess when it comes to attribute points, because there are pet builds where you can spend points only on dexterity to increase your defensive ability, for example, and health to get the most survivability output possible for your character, and then you can try to find gear that will boost your pets, because for pet builds, gear that boosts pets is the most important thing. We have... do I have to show you? No. Anyways, I don't have any items to show you right now here, but there are items that provide bonus to pets. And then you have the bow builds, raised builds. For bow builds, usually at spear builds you go with dexterity as your main attribute. And then you go with strength as well for bow builds, at spear builds. But dexterity is even more important, because usually spears and bows deal also lots of pierce damage. Dexterity increases pierce damage, but this is very complicated. Pierce damage also gets affected by the physical damage, which means that also strength attribute increases pierce damage. Both strength and dexterity increase pierce damage, because there is a formula there that makes both work for pierce damage, but dexterity is more important. So you will experiment a little bit with these things, but energy points also can be spent on many different configurations. It depends, you know, I'm telling you very generic rules now for beginners, but you can experiment a little bit, and then you will understand how to keep going on.